Hey everybody, RetroPie guy here. Today we're going to talk about the original Xbox prototype. Not this right here, this is the original Xbox console that we all know and love that was originally unveiled on January 6th, 2001 by The Rock and Bill Gates in Las Vegas, and then fully released the same year on November 15th. This, however, is not the original vision for the Xbox console. The original prototype, known as the Big X prototype, is this right here. This is a very different version of the Xbox. This is what their original vision for this console was, but it did change and evolve over time. Now, this Big X prototype actually cost over $18,000 to produce each one, and they actually manufactured a couple of these, which were used to take all over the world to different press conferences and meetings for different Microsoft partners and stuff like that to hype up this new project that Microsoft was working on, creating a game console. So the reason this was so expensive was because each prototype was milled from a solid block of aluminum. So it was a super time-consuming process and really took a lot of work as well as obviously craftsmanship to put something like this together. So just taking a look at this particular prototype here, you can see that it has a light on the front here which actually glows green with the Xbox logo on it when powered on. And then on the back side of it, which you can see right here, actually is where you would find your disk drive, your cooling ventilation, and your different connection and power supply ports. So everything was found on the back, and the front of it was purely aesthetic, just to look super cool. And I gotta admit, it looks pretty darn cool. So this prototype was actually first unveiled in 2000 by Bill Gates himself, just to kind of get everybody hyped up for this new project that they were obviously well into figuring out. They had figured out most of it by that point, but they were still working on how it was going to actually appear. So they put together, like I said, a handful of these, and they brought them all over the world. And with it being so bulky and cumbersome, they actually packed it into penguin cases, which are basically like smaller cargo cases, to transport these. And they brought them again all over the world. And they actually used these cargo cases that they transported them in to test their durability. So what they would do when they were bringing it to a new location is they would run it up and down flights of stairs and through parking structures and stuff like that. And they definitely would not be gentle with them. And the reason that they did this was to test out the durability as well as to assess damage to the actual units themselves. So they'd go in here, they'd comb through where there was damage, why there was damage to these areas, and they use that data to figure out what they needed to do to adapt their prototype to something that was going to be more feasible for production. Because obviously at $18,000 a pop, these were not going to be the versions that went out to the masses when they went into full production, because who was going to pay that amount of money for a home console at that time? Nobody. Nobody was going to pay $18,000 or more than that, because obviously Microsoft has to make money as well, which is typical. I mean, when you start doing prototypes always cost an obscene amount of money because you're only doing a handful of them. You're not putting them into full production where you're able to get breaks on your costs along the way. So it's definitely a very unique design. I actually hadn't seen anything about this for a number of years. I only came across this recently, but it's cool to see where this prototype started here and where it evolved into when they actually put this out for full release in 2001. So this Big X prototype right here is actually on display right now at the Microsoft Visitor Center in Redmond, Washington. So if you're ever in the area, you can go and stop by and take a look at this in person. Now, there's absolutely no information that I've come across as to the whereabouts of any of the other Big X prototypes. With those durability tests that were done, they could have been severely damaged and just dismantled, or been working prototypes that they kind of took apart and reassembled to evolve them into the original Xbox release that we got in 2001. So there's no telling as to whether the other versions even exist today, but if they did, or even this one right here, I'm sure is just worth an absolute fortune given its involvement in the history of the Xbox console. So not to mention its cost to actually manufacture each one of these units back in 2000. So it would be definitely interesting to see if any information ever comes out as to the whereabouts of those other versions, if they even exist today. But I did come across all this information fairly recently, and I thought it was super interesting, being that it has such an important role in the history of the Xbox console, and we still use this console today. Not this form necessarily, though some of us do. but we obviously have the newer versions of the Xbox today that are still a vital role in the gaming experience of today. So that's going to do it for today, though. I thought it was an interesting thing to put together in video form here and share with you guys. Let me know in the comment section if you guys enjoyed this video. Smash the like button, share it, and of course subscribe to the RetroPie Guy YouTube channel to stay in the loop for all future videos. But that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching.